G'day and welcome back to my channel. Now this is pretty well where we left old Varyag. It was about a month ago. Yeah, it's time has flown. We've had storms and things and all kinds of stuff going on here, and finally the place has dried out and I've got my head above work and we can get back to the ship. So got that lovely green hull with all my pretend sort of plating on there. I did have a little bit of paint left, which is rather disappointing, that's the styrene from the from that nail tape I put on there to try and get a fine plimsoll line. Now that hasn't happened before, but it could have been the weather, it could have been the fact that this is a bigger area that I was painting with the styrene, and so I was going in wider strokes, and when you do that you get more sort of overspray and it tends to dry a bit more before it actually hits there. So it could have been just a spraying technique, because I did notice it all kind of looked a bit chalky at first, but after it sat there for some time and it's cured, it looks fine now. At least it's fine enough for me to do some weathering effects over. So I thought I'll leave those little scratch marks, those little tears where it's lifted, because they're all tiny and they're all sort of positioned where something like that might have actually happened. So I can work this into my weathering. So I'm not going to stress and try and remask and repaint, because I'm worried about putting masking tape over the green with my those little nail tapes there. I'd hate to start lifting those and then I'd have a real nightmare. So I'll go with it as is. It's not too horrible if you're going to do a weathered ship. If you wanted a pristine ship, well, I have a bit of a problem. I probably need to get in there and hand paint them all, or maybe use a card to airbrush. But no, I'm not going to worry. Not going to let that stress me out. I'm going to push on. So the next thing to do is I've got to get in these wood decks. These lovely little things, right? They're going in. And I have dry fit them before so that you can see how they're going to look. That was before we put all the lovely white on. Now, the whole reason for painting the entire decks white before putting the wood veneer decks on is there's lots of little bits and pieces and greebles and things that poke up through. And most of those are supposed to be white. So that's painted those for me. But also, it's been my experience in the past that putting the wood veneer just onto plastic itself, it doesn't stick too well. It can lift. Whereas if you've got something primed, and once the primer is really cured, which this has, then the glue, the self-adhesive glue, with the help of a little bit of, we'll add some white wood glue, tiny bit, mixed with water, and that allows it to slip. That combination with the primer, it should stick to this little cruiser here like baby shit to a blanket. I tell you, I kid you not. All right, so the greebles here and there and odd bits of superstructure, they're all white poking through. That's good. All I've got left is anything a different colour. And yes, checking the instructions, having a lot of photos online, the only thing that we've got to look out for are the bollards. And there's also some underneath the funnels there in the middle. The funnels sit on three pieces of decking there, which are brown. Okay, well that's no problem. Those three pieces of decking there, which are brown, they're going to be no trouble at all to paint. I'll be able to do those probably by hand, because there's so much going on there that you get away with a few little brush strokes. It won't matter. Do that with life colour anyway. That'll blend in. You'll never see it. So that's easy enough. I'll get those done. And then all the little bollards, there's not that many of them. There's probably only about a dozen or so on the ship. I'll paint those all black. Although I don't usually like to go completely black when I'm painting in scale, because really, due to weathering, due to weather, due to the scale effect of light at a distance, jet black doesn't look like black. It always looks a little bit lighter. So I'll go for an anthracite type colour, which is a very, very dark grey, and I'll do those. So I'll hand paint in the bollards. I'll put the little brown effect I need on those three decks that sit underneath where the funnels are going to go, and then we can start putting in the wood veneer. We're back. For you it's only been seconds, but this has actually been overnight for me, and I've just about finished it. No, I haven't. This is just a little dry fit. I've got the brown paint on the mid decking there. I mixed up my own colour using some life colour paints. Here's a bit of a pick. I used iModel kit as usual to work out the mix and get exactly the colour I wanted to match. So they're done. They're a bit fiddly. Luckily those parts are they come off. So I was able to use a very fine brush and get in there. But one little trick that I use, because I'll often mess up, and there's no way I can paint fine detail. Oops, I can't pull that piece off. You'll see this one here. See those tiny little white rings? Now there's no way I could have painted those. There's no way I could even have painted around those. Impossible. So I used a trick where I painted everything and then sort of lightly brushed off as much as I could off the rings, but basically they were all brown. The whole thing was brown. I let the brown paint dry, and then I used some very fine, this is super fine 3M sanding sponge. Got quite a few of these sanding sponge grades now. Grades of grit. Grits of grade, yeah, gritty. And very gently sanded off the brown paint, but left the primer white underneath. Now this only works if you've got a good foundation colour underneath, and also only works if you don't slap it on too thick, the other colour on top. But I was able to do that with the white dots there. Again, no way could I have painted those. All right? There's no way I could have got them that sharp. In fact, they're not entirely perfect. But again, I just painted around as best I could, but ended up slopping a little bit. And then there's a little bit of touch up there now. And then I just got the sandpaper and gently rubbed it over. In fact, I'll show you how it all works. Here's the gangrail area, which is also the boat support that sits across the middle there. And it needed the brown down the middle of that little U-shaped sort of railing there. And then of course, you know, there's no way I can get that painted properly. So I'm actually going to mask and spray, but what I thought I'd show you is, just to prove my point, I'll show you how easy this is. There's a little bit there that I've basically got all gunky. So if I was to take my sandpaper and very gently, I mean, you are not applying hardly any pressure, you're basically letting the paper sit and fall on there. There we go. Okay, you can do that, and because it's so fine, there shouldn't be really any sanding marks. So that's a little trick that I use quite a lot actually, because with my fumbling fingers I've had to find ways of getting around these sort of problems when you don't want to have to respray a whole thing. And you think, what am I going to do? Sometimes you can use a knife blade to do it. There's another one. And tiny little shards there. Toothbrush. These are things I use. Strange things, aren't they? Toothbrush. So that's one way you could solve that. But I actually want to get the inside of that looking a lot smoother than what I've managed to paint. So I'd already decided I'd just slap the brown in there, and then I would mask. I'd cut basically 3mm wide strip of masking tape, pop it in there, and then pop some more paint on, which I need to do anyway because there's a few other little things that need doing. There's some things that cropped up. While I was dry fitting everything together and having a look to see if there was fit, I found here, this section. C25 is the bulkhead. It's the bulkhead back here. And when that goes in and everything's in, it's going to be very hard to actually get these parts, which are in the step 4A. It'll be very hard to put those in afterwards. I mean, that they suggest in the instructions to build that up as sub-assembly. So I'm going to follow that. So I found those little pieces. They're down here. And I'm going to put those into that bulkhead. Now, I've also noticed a few problems with the dry fit. And this is the whole reason for dry fitting. Here is that bulkhead that I'm going to stick those tiny little parts on. And it's sitting on the wood veneer. And you'll see that is way too proud there. That should be like that. So we've got literally 1 to 2 millimeters too high there. Now, there is backing film on the veneer, which basically will add a little bit of thickness. So I peeled one off and I stuck a little piece on. The backing film is incredibly thin. So most of the height that we're seeing this thing push up is the wood veneer, right? So I did this little piece here. I did this little piece just to see. And the wood veneer, I don't know if you can see this side, it has got a thickness. It's oh, I don't know, 0.5 mil. But anyway, there seems to be quite a bit of a build up here and a bit of a problem. That is way too high. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a pencil and mark a very sharp, hard pencil and mark that line so I can cut this wood veneer deck before I put it back in. And there's also the same issue at the back here, at the stern. Try not to wreck them, things have fallen off here. This piece again is also sitting proud. You can see there's quite a gap. So that's with the wood veneer deck on. And it's more than the plastic layer. Yeah, a bit of a push down, it might sort of fit, but again, I'm going to mark a line across there with the very sharp pencil, and then I'm going to cut just on the outside of that line, that bit of deck off. And I've had to do this already in one other tiny piece. Let me see if I can find it. This tiny little piece here. This goes on the stern superstructure there. And this is one of the ones I didn't take the railings off. It's so small and so fiddly. I went, no, I've hit my limit, that's it. I may just get the rails around all those other deck pieces, but this is so little and they're going to be so fragile, I won't. So the supplied piece of wood deck from Wood Hunter for this, I think it's Wood Hunter, I don't know. Whatever, I think it was Wood Hunter deck. Anyhow, the supplied piece of deck was about 4 millimeters too wide, because that'd be the width of the two sides there. So yeah, I needed to trim that piece of wood veneer up to make it fit. And you don't have to be frightened about doing that, just need to, like with any practice, measure twice, cut once. As Mr. Beaver used to say, my woodworking teacher, yes. Now something else that arrived in the mail that I haven't shown you yet is this. These are PE rat lines. Now I have a number of basically pre-Dreadnought and World War I ships that actually do have rat lines, which is, you normally see them on sailing ships, but a lot of these early metal ships still use rat lines to go up to the crow's nest, and the Varyag does that as well. There's both the foremast and the sternmast have little rat lines. Now they're not supplied in the kit, and they're not. They weren't in the PE with the wood deck, so I went and purchased them. And this is a generic set, so this is various. It says there 1-350 rat lines of various sizes for all rig ships. Yes. So I forget which ones, but I know there's a pair for the front, a pair for the rear, for the stern and the bow. Use correct nautical terms, Harry and Eddie. Talking ships here. Oh God, I'll get river counted. Oh dear. So yeah, look, these are lovely. These will paint up and they'll go straight in. That's a lot less mucking around than actually doing it with easy line or bits of rusty old string. Yeah. Okay. None of that. You get what I'm on about. Okay. So those are going to be quite nice. They will add value to this kit. Right. Well, I've got these little parts here to put on. I've also got the screws out while I was at it, because one of these tiny little parts that needs to go on, which is part of that instruction, go back to it, refer to it. Here we are. Instruction 4A here. 4A. My 4A into 4A. That little part there, C28. You see it? C28. See, that's the ship's bell. Yes. And I must say these were well engineered. The sprue point for C28 was on the bottom, which meant I left that tiny little sprue point a little bit of a bump, because a ship's bell would have the ringer, the little dangly thing. So that would be correct. Now that needs to be brass. That's the whole reason for me waffling on this point. That needs to be brass. So what I need to do is prime those parts and put them on the bulkhead. In fact, probably put them on a bulkhead and prime them all together, which is good because I'm already spraying my my boat ramp and gangplank. I'm going to give that a spray after I mask that up. So that's good. So while I'm at it, and this is what I like to do, how many things can I do at once? You know, how much stuff can I do? Well, the screws, they're also going to be brass, okay? Now these little screws here for the prop shafts or props. Some people call them props, some people call them screws. It's a prop shaft, and these are often prop screws. So, yeah, anyhow, we'll call them screws. They, I was a bit worried at first because the veins, little 3 veins on there, each one of them had a bloody sprue point, which is annoying, and so they needed trimming. But amazingly, they cut clean fairly easily and sanded up quite well. So again, there's been quite a bit of good engineering on this kit, and Zvezda has surprised me no end that they've really thought it through and they've done a good job. All right, enough of this. I'll get that gangplank masked up, and then I'll spray some white styrene res on everything so that I then can start adding the brass. Oh, and also, seeing as well, I want a bit of a brassy sort of shiny thing. Over here on the bow, we've got this lovely little filigree piece here, which also needs to be, well, this needs to be gold, they say. I do have gold and I have brass. Often I can't tell the bloody difference between them. They're just yellow and metally. So we'll carefully get in and do that. I don't know if it's a relief or we just paint the whole thing. I'll double check my references. But while we're doing one thing, we might as well do a few others. And also, we'll look over here. I've never noticed this. We have some touch-ups to do. Yes, we've got some green overspray. Look at that. Showing up on video. All right, we have got a little bit of work to do here. So I'll probably have to feather that in with a brush and tidy that up. No problem. These things happen. And as you find stuff, you just correct it and fix it, move on. The beauty about styrene is, even though I've airbrushed that on there, I can take a very small amount with a bit of water on a hairy brush and I can feather it in and you'll hardly see it. You really won't. In fact, I probably need to get in and scrape and sand a bit of that. Oh dear, what a mess. Well, there you go. The things you see when you actually zoom in on the camera. All right, let me get on, fix all this up and get everything painted, and we'll come back ready to put the wood decks on and do the final assembly of this sub-assembly. Here we go. I'm out of the spray booth and I've managed to paint everything up. I have that bulkhead. It's all primed now. All the parts are all those tiny little things. The screws have been painted. I jammed some toothpicks up them. I had to draw some holes in to make that happen. There really isn't much of a mounting point on them, so I ended up using the pin vise to drill in a bit so I could shove some toothpicks up their bums. Now, the bow, that's completely fixed. And I was going to hairy brush it, I know I said that. And you can normally do that if it's just a quick job and you haven't got the airbrush running, then I would just use a slightly damp paintbrush, and feather in, touch up with styrene. But I had the airbrush going, I had the paint in there, so I thought, there's a tiny area here where the nail tape isn't. So this section, just above where I've put those plates in, those nail, fingernail tape plates, there's a little space. So I could probably get some sticky on that. Well, masking tape. So I made this up. Looks huge, doesn't it? It's not actually. That's only got an overlap of about 2 millimeters. Red Room Models. Stole their invoice to do it. So this allowed me to mask up that whole area, but only attach with a tiniest bit of tape, and then very gently airbrush in, careful not to flood. And I managed to do that. I then used this little snifty tool. It worked so well. I tried it there and I got a great result. Then I worked my way around, and some of the worst spots where there was scratching. Now I even found another bit of green overspray that managed to get in there. So I worked my way around. I managed to do a little bit of touching up, but I didn't want to get too crazy or carried away. But anyway, that's good. That problem is solved. Now let's have a look at this gangplank. So I've masked that, as I said, with just a tiny bit of 2 millimeter mask in tape, which I cut, specially cut, and Oh, it's looking good. I think we might have actually had a win. How's that? How's that? And it was kind of fiddly to put in, I tell you. I started to think, what the hell am I doing? But how's that for a result? That's much better. I mean, it's not 100% perfect. Oh, look, you'll never see it. You're going to take a pic with that. It's just not bad. So that's actually got my brown walkway, which is, you know, either wood or anti-slip or something. It's probably wood. And the walls at least have a sharp edge on them. So how's that for a result? Pretty happy with that. Yes, good. Nice to have a win. Nice to have a win. All right, well, we've got all these bits and pieces all painted up. I might get a little bit of brass on some of those other fittings, and the bulkhead needs a little touch of black. I'll do a little bit of titibating now, and then let's assemble this. While the plastic parts are drying, I thought it might be a good opportunity to make these guns. Look at that. What do you think of that? Sorry about the scummy fingernails. I should have my manicurist look at me before I do these bloody videos. Aren't they good? Look, they're even barrels are hollowed out. Now that, I believe, is far superior to that plastic part. You know, chalk and cheese. There's no hollow end. It's just devoid of any kind of definite shape. It's just a blob. It's horrible. Okay. So what we'll do now is I'll show you how to make one of these. They're really not that hard, and I'll put the metal barrel on, replacing the plastic one. So this is what you need. It's really probably one of the easiest guns to build on a ship. You've got the plastic, basically barrel and the breech. You've got a little base. You've got a left and right side of the fulcrum, and there's a little locking pin underneath. Now, these guns, as I discussed before, if I want to make them movable, they need to go into the deck before the deck's assembled to the hull. So I'm going to do that. I thought, why not? It's actually not that hard. So that's all the parts you need. Let's build a little 6 inch, 152mm, I think it is, World War I ship's gun. Now the parts come fairly cleanly off the sprue. The only thing you need to do, and be very careful, is the base of the two fulcrums. Just needs a tiny bit of sprue grate removed. Now I found, don't file these, because if you do, the plastic is kind of soft, and then you'll end up with a not very flat bottom. And you don't want a very flat bottom, do you? No, we all like girls with big bottoms. What? You're being sexist. No, can't say that, Harry Houdini. Why not? No, it's not allowed anymore. Not allowed to say anything like that. Not at all. Oh, okay. Well, fuck that. That's how I talk. Oops. Okay. Just lost a whole lot of viewers. Anyhow, I'm just filling in the space here while I'm cutting the gun, the breech here. It's just got a tiny bit of sprue point that has to come off. Again, I'm just knifing that off. It won't be seen under there, but you know, the sign of a good craftsman is even the spots that you can't see, they make sure it's done properly. It used to be the old thing, if you wanted to buy, you know, a table or something, it was made of wood, and you wanted to know that the craftsman did a good job, you'd actually look underneath it. Look where you can't see, and see if they bothered to finish off all the joints and tidy everything up. And if you found it was it had all been done properly, then you knew that was a good craftsman. They knew their stuff. So the base here just again has some tiny little sprue points we've got to cut off. Not that hard. They come off fairly easily. And then I will need the one thing I didn't bother to grab. Bear with me, talks amongst yourselves. Just need a file. I'll just need a file. And as always, you've seen in my videos, you know if we're doing round stuff, you actually file. You file in around. That's it. These are tiny, aren't they? Look at my bloody fat fingers. I can hardly get myself around them. One thing you can do, and another tool I've forgotten here, is if you've got some tiny little micro shears like I do, you can actually get in Sometimes it's easier to cut off. There we go. That was far easier. I don't know if you can see. Probably just a big fat hand in the way and a person just waffling on, going, brr, 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 going, God, this video is crap. I don't know why people watch this guy, for God's sake. Well, I don't know. A lot of you guys seem to like watching me fiddle and play with the plastic. You know, even when I sort of talked about my waffling, you said, no, more waffle. Well, no, we're restricting it to only 25% waffle these days, honestly. All right, that's enough of that. So there's that little piece. Now, I'll probably have another look at it when I'm off camera. But there's a little base here, you just got to get around the right way. So what we're going to do is that little base, I found you needed to hold this. This is also small and fiddly. So I'm using these little, what do you call them? They're sort of tweezers, but they reverse, you know. When you squeeze them, they open. So when you let them go, they're shut. Are they called suture scissors or something? Something like that. Whatever. There we go. So with that sitting there in place, it's going to be a lot easier to do what I need to do next. And what I need to do is these tiny little fulcrums, I've actually got to sit around that square. It's pretty bloody annoying, I can tell you. And they're just sort of L-shaped, so they've got to go around. So I found the best way was just to tweeze them on. And they are fiddly. It's nearly in spot. It's got to go far enough forward that it falls off the edge of that little bump, and far enough backward It's a tiny little bloody thing, isn't it? This is why I've got it in the holder, because if you're trying to do all this in your hands, well, good luck. I couldn't accomplish that. So again, on this side, same trick. On the bottom. Now they're also going to join in the middle. This is actually the front of it, and that will join to that. So bear with me, I'll probably have my hands in the way. There may be some swearing at this point. They do require a little bit of fiddling, and to get that front bit to actually line up, well, I had to go off camera. So I've got to actually, for me, get it close to my wonky eyes. It's a bit annoying because I've got to sit either side of this little centre thing, and we're doing little tolerances of 0.5 millimetre here. These are little, but you can get through them. I did 4 last night. I'll do the other 4 this morning. Got a bit of junk there. I'll cut that off with a knife. So they're not too hard. They're just fiddly. That's all. So just make sure you got your wits about you. Now the bit that a lot of people get a little bit apprehensive about is putting on metal barrels, and really it's not that hard. You just you get instructions usually with whatever's supplied. In this case, it's pretty simple. That's your metal part. It'll just butt join on there. So that's not really very taxing at all. The thing you got to watch out for is, and you probably won't be able to see this on camera, is there's a tiny little nipple. It's a little pointy little nipple thing there, which sticks out, which you can file off if you like, if you want to just do a butt fit, or they are handy for locating, because I'll show you in a sec, if you actually create a little hole for it to locate into, it's going to make it easier to fit. So let's just, first of all, we'll do the savage bit, which is we're going to remove the barrel. Now you want to know exactly where you're going to cut this, and that's pretty obvious because it's right up here where basically the barrel ends the breech, and there's a little bump I can rest up against. So making sure you're at the correct angle and gently worrying your knife through and having nerves of steel. That's it. Okay, helps you've got a nice sharp knife. Now you will need to make sure that this is filed basically perpendicular. Back on camera, Harry. So just a little bit of a tweak to make sure you are perpendicular to the cylinder. And that's all it took. Okay. Now that nipple is going to need to fit into something, so what we'll do is we'll mark a tiny hole in the centre. If you get it wrong, you can keep going to get the right one. Can't bloody see a thing this morning, my eyes are shot. Too much curry last night. Alright, so sorry about this taking so long. There we go. So there's a hole in the centre there, and we'll just test that. Bumping everything here. So we'll just test that into there. Yes, that's going to work. That's going to be good. What we'll need now is we'll need some CR glue. I'm using Slow Zap because it gives you a little more time. It's also a little bit thicker, which tends to basically hide some gaps. So I'll put a little bit there on a card, and I'll take my barrel and I'll dip it into the glue, and then finding the end of my breech there. That's where the locating hole makes all the difference. The locating hole gives me something to push up against. Make sure I've got this right. So hopefully I am perpendicular. But I've only got to wait a few seconds and the CA glue will usually start to tack. And then I can check. Is it straight up and down that way? Is it straight up and down that way? Oh, ever so slightly out. And the CA glue this stuff, because it gives you just a little bit of time. Oh, that's pretty good. That will work. That's fine. So there we go. Another one done. Easy as that. Now, the wood decks. Now, this is something that a lot of people seem to stress out about. It's actually the easiest part of the whole operation. It's all the preparation that you need to do that takes time. So, your veneer, right, it's got the backing film on. We're going to take that off in a sec. Normally, I'd probably do this with the decks on the model, but because we need to put guns on decks to put on hull, means the veneer's got to go in underneath. It's sort of, this one's a bit weird. I mean, usually you've got, you can put all your wood deck on and then you can mount your turrets on top and you're fine. But for this one, I will put the wood deck on the deck pieces before they're assembled to the hull. You can do it either way, it doesn't matter. So I've got some water here in this container and I'm just going to add a little bit of white glue. That's PVA or wood glue. So I'll just make that up into a very, very weak solution. And this is just giving me a little bit of slippiness. So I don't need much. I don't want to flood this. Just want it enough so this thing's not going to go and then it's stuck forever. That I might have a little bit of room to play. I'm usually pretty good. I get them on in one go, but then having said that, I probably jinx myself. Now, there's film on the back here. I've usually found the best way is get a bit of a scrape with a knife. It's not cooperating today. Here we go. Get a bit of scrape and it starts to come off. You can try sliding the knife in and see if you can peel it off that way. And I find you usually end up actually damaging the veneer. Whereas this way, you've got a little piece peel. Now being very careful here and touching things the least amount because it's already stuck to my fingers. That is now very sticky. So moving everything out of the way that I can possibly knock. And remember, I've done my dry fit, so I know this should fit in place. I'm lining it up as best possible. And remember, you've got greebles here, and the greebles have already given you positions for everything. So if I'm lining up the greeble, look at that, got it in one go. Didn't even need the slippage. Okay, but if I did, this should have, it moves a tiny bit. I don't know if you can see that. It will move. Huh? So you can get that little bit. If you're out by that tiny bit, you can move it this way, that way. This is not moving anywhere because it's locked on by the greeble. Now what you need to do is, and I haven't got my toothpick. Now what you need to do at this point is, if you've got a toothpick, being very gentle around your greebles, just give it a push down because that's where it's going to stick up. And don't push too hard because of course you'll wreck your laminate. But most of the greebles, because they're poking up through, they often there's a bit of rigidness. So that's it. That's all there is to it. Okay, so that's the aft deck done, and it'll be the same procedure for the mid decks, the bow deck, and the superstructure. Just line it up, stick it on, away you go. There she is. The Varyag now has teeth. Yes. Guns are all in there. They've all been painted actually German grey because that was fast and easy for me to do. I had a rattle can of Tamiya German grey. So they quickly got German grey, which is fine because I'll be able to run a dark wash over those now and then do some effects to liven them up. So it's all there. The centre decks are all brown. Everything's done exactly as I wanted. The walkway is, it's nice and neat. It's all looking good. The deck's probably a little too light for my taste, but I will be running a dark wash over it. I'll do the same trick I did with the Gruff Spay, and I'll run a brown wash over it, and I'll probably randomise it a bit to get dark planks and light planks, just as I did for Gruff Spay. But more of that next time. I think this video has run on long enough. So there she is. Decks are on. I've got to cement the decks in, rubber band it up overnight so that the whole thing settles down. But everything else is glued. It's just the decks need cementing down. But I thought I'd show you where I'm up to and not leave it another day for you to wait to see the end of this video, because you're probably as excited as I am and you just wanted to see it. See how it looks. There she is. There she is. The Protected Cruiser Varyag. All right. Till next time. I'll see you then. So it's goodbye from Australia, and it's hooroo from Harry Houdini.